This past week, I became a great aunt. I always thought I was a pretty good one, but apparently this week I'm a great one. And my mother welcomed her first great grandchild, Mackenzie Jacqueline, born to my nephew Merrill and his partner Melissa. 7 pounds, born this past Thursday morning. And so, another generation begins. What is it about babies? For all the millions of births that have occurred throughout the ages, the wonder and awe of the miracle of birth never seems to diminish. Perhaps it's a first world perspective, where we don't worry so much about another mouth to feed or where we'll find proper shelter or medical care. As grandparents or great-grandparents, don't our eyes sparkle and our hearts lighten at the prospect of another generation to carry on the family name and traditions? Maybe that similar cowlick of the hair or the eye color or hair color. Another child to spoil and nurture and grow. How often have you seen those bumper stickers that read, "I'm spending my children's inheritance on my grandkids"? Thank you, Kendra. There is something about a child's birth that speaks of promise and blessing, of renewed hope, a fresh start. And so this morning we celebrate just such a birth with Maya and her parents, Sydney and Justin, and their extended family and friends. They have come here to honor some of their family's traditions and make promises to this infant in faith for her future and potential. In our United Church tradition, baptism is one of the 2 sacraments that we celebrate as a community of faith, the other being communion. Both are considered a way of connecting to God, an inward experience of God's presence in an outward action or event. And baptism is considered the sole rite of initiation into the church. Some describe it as God's yes to us and our yes to God. It is considered an expression or experience of grace, that moment when we open ourselves to God's blessing of renewal or restoration, perhaps marking a new beginning in our lives. And I believe that throughout our lives there are moments when we do experience that sense of renewal or restoration, those new beginnings. You can think for a moment about those times in your life when that has happened for you. Does it happen to people who have no particular faith? Well, yes, of course. As Christians or followers of Christ, however, we have in Christ a model of what it means to be human and in relationship with the divine. We have in Jesus an example of life in all of its struggles and triumphs, growing and maturing throughout our lives as we learn to navigate life itself. What dreams do we dream when we hold such a child as Maya in our arms? What dreams does the Creator of all living things dream when another life is formed and new breath is drawn? That Creator sighs with the wonder and awe of any parent or grandparent or great-grandparent and says, it is good. Just like our reading from Genesis this morning, when the waters of life were formed at the time of creation. And from the Gospel of Mark, we hear of Jesus' own baptism. At this time, Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. And the moment he came out of the water, he saw the sky split open and God's Spirit, looking like a dove, come down on him. And along with the Spirit, a voice, "You are my Son, chosen and marked by love, pride of my life." I've been thinking this past week about the many phases of life, the beginnings and the endings and the myriad of events that occur in between along the way. God willing, we will all live long and fulfilled lives. As I do my pastoral visits, I am honored to hear so many stories of your lives. Places of birth and families of origin, first careers or college educations, the reasons why you left home or decided to settle down in this place or another. I've heard stories of courtships and engagements, weddings, and sometimes divorces. I've heard about the pain of relationships that are hard especially for caregivers who, out of love, are so devoted, but so exhausted, and grieving for their spouse or their parent who is there physically, but not always mentally. I've heard of relationships that end too soon, and where decades later the pain of failure or betrayal can still be felt. I've stood by parents after the loss of their child, be it an adult or an infant, and they feel a loss of a part of themselves, a future that will no longer be, and a fear that their child will be forgotten. I've heard stories of faith, of what enabled you to bear the burdens and challenges of your lives. What kept you going? What helped you hold on? What gave you hope? Oh, life can be harsh. We can blame and point fingers and question and doubt and rant, but in the end, it is life and both the privilege and burden of being human. And yet, that is the mystery of life itself, I think. We come into the world with nothing but bare skin and a desire to be held, and perhaps that is how we will leave it. And we try to make sense of what happens in between. We spend years building up our careers, our families, our homes, our RSP, our legacy. And in the latter years, we spend years or months downsizing and decluttering, letting go, and sometimes discovering things about ourselves we would never have realized before. So caught up were we in the demands of our lives. And so grace enters in. It has always been there, but perhaps in our most vulnerable times and states, we catch a glimpse or hear a voice that says, "Beloved, you are my son, you are my daughter, chosen and marked by my love, pride of my life." Ultimately, isn't that what we all yearn for? To be loved and the pride of another, valued and cherished. It seems easy to love a beautiful baby, to cuddle and rock, and yet as we get older and develop personalities and traits, we gain a voice, and heaven forbid, an opinion. We believe we know so much, and we make bold moves that are not necessarily always the best moves. And we experience conflict and doubts, anger and stubbornness, or pride. And we make some mistakes that seem impossible to correct. Sometimes we even experience shame for our actions. Our faith story tells us that even in those moments, if we are able to listen, when we have wept for forgiveness and second chances, that a voice reaches our heart and says, "Beloved, you are my son, my daughter, chosen and marked by my love, pride of my life." And so we are able to begin again. Move forward, start fresh, like a babe washed in the waters of baptism, renewed, restored, ready to move forward once more. Grace at work. For me, that is the essence of my faith. The awareness that I am loved, cherished, and always given a second chance or fresh start when I fail. As I have told many of you before, I was given up for adoption upon my birth by my birth mother. Out of her concern and love for me, she wanted a better life for me than what she thought could give as a single mother in a big city far from family and home. So after she relinquished me, I was in foster care for the first 10 months of my life, likely because of a club foot that I'd been born with that would have been off-putting for some prospective parents. But my adopted family specialized in orthopedic shoes for children. My grandfather, in fact, designed them. Club feet were their specialty. Grace entered in, and in my life, it moved in a new direction. My birth mother made the choice to give me up. My foster mother made the choice to open her home and heart to foster children. My adoptive parents made the choice to adopt me. I have always sensed God's love for me and felt comfort and consolation even in the challenging parts of my life. I have felt beloved. I have felt named and cherished, and I have rarely felt alone. If you hear nothing else from my words this morning, I hope that you will hear God's voice speaking to you, saying, "Beloved, you are my son. You are my daughter, chosen and marked by my love, pride of my life." And know it to be true. Know that as sure as precious Maya here is held in love and hope in her parents' arms, that you are held in your Creator's. Know that no matter what life brings you, that love can outlast and overcome anything. And look for the grace that is at work in your life as it has been since the day you were born. Those moments when we have been open to God's blessings of renewal or restoration, marking a new beginning in our lives. Know that there is no one as precious as you in God's eyes, because there is only one such as you. So value who you are, cherish who you are, and say to yourself each morning in the mirror, "Beloved, marked by love, you are the pride of the one who created you. Blessed be you, now and forever." Amen.